I still remember the sound of my father's laughter that night. Not the warm, affectionate kind a parent gives when they're proud of their child. No, this was sharp, mocking, and laced with disbelief. We were sitting at the head of our dining table in our grand family home in Ikoyi, Lagos. The table itself could seat 20, but only 4 of us sat there: my father, my stepmother, my half-brother, and me. I had just turned 21, fresh out of university, brimming with ambition and the quiet determination that had been building in me since my teenage years. I told him plainly, "Dad, I don't want your money. I want to make it on my own." He leaned back in his high-backed leather chair, swirling his glass of brandy. Then he laughed, a deep, chesty sound that filled the room and burned my ears. "Amara, you? Without my money? My dear, stop joking. This world will eat you alive before you even learn how to walk in it." His words didn't just sting. They carved something into me. A silent promise. Growing up, my father was the kind of man who was loved in the streets and feared in his home. He had built Okeke Holdings, a multi-million naira company dealing in imports, construction, and even oil. Everyone respected Chief Okeke. But to him, respect was earned through power and wealth, not through kindness. I was the only child from his first marriage. My mother had left him when I was 8, packing her bags after one too many fights, one too many humiliations. She moved to Enugu and lived a quiet, modest life, while I stayed with my father in Lagos, surrounded by marble floors and expensive cars, yet starving for something money couldn't buy: love. His new wife, Auntie Funk, made it her mission to remind me daily that I was just the child from his past and that her own son, Chaik, was the rightful heir to his empire. That night at the dining table, when my father's laughter cut me open, Chaik smirked. Auntie Funk didn't hide her satisfaction. I excused myself quietly, but in my heart, I swore I would prove them wrong. Not just by surviving, but by thriving. The next morning, I packed my things, just one small suitcase. No chauffeur. No driver. I took a bus to the outskirts of Lagos, where the noise of Ikoyi's wealthy neighborhood faded into the raw hum of the city's real heartbeat. I had saved a small amount from the allowance I used to receive, but I knew it wouldn't last. I found a tiny one-room apartment in Surulere, walls cracked, a small ceiling fan that groaned every night, and a single mattress on the floor. But to me, it was freedom. I applied for jobs, any jobs. Receptionist, customer care, sales rep. Most employers took one look at me and thought I wasn't serious, probably assuming I'd run back to my father within weeks. One evening, while walking past a busy market, I noticed a crowd gathered around a young man selling handbags made from Ankara fabric. His designs were unique, modern shapes, bold African prints. Women were buying them quickly. I thought, this is it. I found the man, his name was Kunal, and asked him if he could teach me how to make them. He laughed at first, thinking I wasn't serious. But when I offered to work for him for free just to learn, he agreed. For the next 3 months, I worked in Kunal's small roadside stall. I learned how to cut fabric, how to stitch, how to choose color combinations that stood out. I even learned how to talk to customers, not with the stiff politeness of the corporate world, but with the warmth that made people want to return. Eventually, I bought my own small sewing machine from the little savings I had. My room became my workshop. Every evening after work, I'd sew handbags late into the night, sometimes until my fingers bled. First, I sold them to women in my neighborhood, then to friends, then to strangers on Instagram. It was slow. Painfully slow. But I refused to stop. One day, a lifestyle blogger bought one of my bags and posted it online, tagging me. Overnight, I had over 300 orders. I didn't sleep for 2 days straight, sewing nonstop. My tiny room was filled with bags, on the bed, the floor, even hanging from the ceiling fan. By the end of that month, I had made more money than I'd ever seen without my father's help. I registered my business name, Amara Lux. But life doesn't let you rise without testing your strength. When the rainy season hit, my room flooded one night. All my fabrics and half-finished bags were ruined. The smell of wet fabric and disappointment hung in the air for days. I sat there, staring at the damage, thinking maybe my father was right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this. But then I remembered his laughter. That mocking sound. I borrowed money from a friend, bought new fabric, and started again, this time renting a tiny shop space to avoid another disaster. For the next 3 years, I worked like my life depended on it. I expanded my designs, shoes, belts, even jackets with matching bags. I hired young women from my neighborhood, some single mothers, others school dropouts, training them just like Kunnel had trained me. The business grew. I partnered with boutiques in Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Accra. My Instagram following exploded. Fashion shows started inviting me. And all this time, I never reached out to my father. Not once. I heard through distant relatives that he believed I was probably selling my body somewhere because no one makes money without capital in his world. I smiled whenever I heard it. Let him think what he wants. One day, while attending a business seminar in Victoria Island, I overheard 2 men talking about Okeke Holdings. Apparently, my father's empire wasn't doing well. His lavish spending, combined with poor management, had drained the company's accounts. Banks were circling. Investors were pulling out. I sat there, my heart pounding. Could it be possible? Could I buy it? I started by quietly reaching out to some of his suppliers and former business partners, asking about the company's financial state. They confirmed it was bad. Very bad. Through a lawyer friend, I learned the company was about to be auctioned off to pay debts. The thought of walking into that auction, bidding for my father's company, and winning, it lit something in me I can't describe. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. I didn't have enough liquid cash to outbid corporate sharks. So, I made a bold move. I pitched my brand to an international African fashion investor. I told him I wanted to scale Amara Luxe globally, but first, I needed to secure a side investment to buy a failing import company that could serve as both a logistics partner and a legacy project. He agreed, on the condition that he'd take a small share of my fashion business in return. I signed. The day came. My father wasn't there. He had sent Chike to represent him, probably thinking the company could somehow be salvaged through family bidding. I walked into that room in a fitted Ankara blazer, my hair tied back, heels clicking against the marble floor. Chike froze when he saw me. When the bidding started, I stayed quiet at first, letting others fight it out. Then, when the room was tense and the top bidder thought they'd won, I raised my paddle. The room turned. All eyes on me. I bid higher. And higher. Until the auctioneer's gavel slammed down. Sold. To me. Chike's face went pale. He stammered, "Wait, you? How?" I smiled. "Tell Dad I bought it. And tell him I'll be in his office tomorrow morning." The next morning, the sun was already high when I walked into the grand glass building that used to intimidate me as a child. Okeke Holdings, my father's pride, looked different now. The once busy reception area was quiet, the gold-plated logo on the wall slightly tarnished, as though it too had fallen on hard times. The receptionist, an older woman who had worked there since I was a little girl, froze when she saw me. "Amara," she whispered, almost like she didn't believe her eyes. I smiled. "Good morning, Auntie Rose. Please tell my father I'm here." She picked up the phone with trembling hands. Moments later, I was ushered into his office. My father sat behind his massive mahogany desk, looking older than I remembered. His once broad shoulders had slumped slightly. His eyes, however, still carried that piercing sharpness. "Amara," he said slowly, leaning back in his chair. "To what do I owe this surprise?" I walked in confidently and set the folder on his desk, the legal document proving ownership transfer. He glanced at it casually, but when his eyes scanned the signature, he froze. "This is a joke," he said, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. It's not, I replied, my voice steady. I bought Okeke Holdings yesterday. It belongs to me now. He blinked. Once. Twice. His hands tightened on the folder. With whose money? Which man is behind you? The question was a dagger, but I had been expecting it. No man. No family money. Just me, my work, and the brand you laughed at 3 years ago. His jaw clenched. Do you have any idea what this company means to me? I built it from scratch. I cut him off. Yes, I know. And I'll respect it. But you also let it rot while looking down on the one person who could have learned from you. You told me I'd fail without you. Instead, I learned to survive without you. And now, I gestured around the office. Here we are. Silence stretched between us. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Finally, he leaned back, his eyes misting, not from joy, but from something heavier. I didn't think you had it in you. You didn't want me to have it in me, I replied quietly. You wanted me to need you. I don't. But I do want something. He raised an eyebrow. And what is that? I want you to work for me. The words seemed to echo in the room. His lips parted in shock. For a moment, I thought he might explode with anger. But instead, he gave a small, humorless chuckle. You've grown colder than I imagined. No, I said, shaking my head. Not cold. Just fair. You're still sharp, you still know the business inside out. But this time, you'll teach me, not as a father to a daughter, but as an employee to an employer. You owe me that much. He looked at me for a long time, his eyes scanning my face. Then, to my shock, his hands trembled slightly as he closed the folder. You sound just like your mother, he whispered. The mention of her sent a flicker of warmth through me. Then maybe that's not such a bad thing, I replied. By the time I left his office, I knew something had shifted. The power dynamic had changed. But under that, something else, something old and buried, was starting to surface. Tomorrow, I'd see if he could rise to the challenge. The first few weeks of having my father work under me were strange. In meetings, he still had the commanding voice of a man used to leading, but now he had to pause and look at me for final decisions. The staff, once loyal only to him, slowly began to adapt to the new order. At first, he resisted, subtly, with small remarks under his breath, questioning my strategies in front of others. But I didn't take the bait. I let the results speak. And the results came fast. With my network from Amara Lux and my investors' logistics expertise, we opened new trade routes that cut costs by almost 20%. We revived old contracts and negotiated better terms. The company began to breathe again. One afternoon, about 2 months in, I walked into his office and found him staring at the wall. On it hung a faded photograph of him in his early days, standing beside the first delivery truck he ever bought. He didn't hear me enter. When I spoke, he jumped slightly. You okay? I asked. He sighed. Do you know why I laughed that night, Amara? I stayed silent. It wasn't just pride, he said slowly. It was fear. I built this empire from nothing, and I knew how the world chews up people who dream too big. I thought, if I could make you depend on me, you'd be safe. I felt a tightness in my chest. Safe isn't the same as alive, Dad. He nodded, his eyes glistening. I see that now. The next week, I announced to the board that Okeke Holdings had cleared its most urgent debts and was on track to profit again. After the meeting, my father lingered behind. As the room emptied, he walked over to me. His voice was low. I owe you an apology, and my respect. You didn't just save the company, you saved me from my own arrogance. And then, before I could respond, he did something I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. He cried. Not the silent, dignified tears of a proud man, but the kind that broke from somewhere deep inside. His shoulders shook. His voice cracked as he said, "I am proud of you, Amara. More than I have ever been of anything I built." I stood there frozen for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged him. For years, I had imagined this moment, not the tears, not even the words, but the acknowledgement that I was more than the girl he once dismissed. We stayed like that for a long while. In the months that followed, our relationship changed. We still clashed sometimes, two strong wills never blend perfectly, but there was mutual respect now. He started telling me stories about the company's early days, things I wished I had known years ago. One evening, over a quiet dinner, he said, "I used to think legacy was just about passing down wealth. Now I know it's about passing down resilience." I smiled. Then maybe we're building a new kind of legacy. This journey taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes, the people who doubt you aren't your enemies, they're just prisoners of their own fears. Proving them wrong is satisfying, yes, but proving yourself right is what changes everything. And in the end, success isn't about money or power. It's about standing tall enough that even those who once laughed at you have no choice but to look up.